The last method we're talking about is the quadratic formula. And this method works for every single type of quadratic as long as it's written in standard form. So this is probably the method that you're going to use the most. The quadratic formula is this right here. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you'll see that parts of our equations that I told you about before, the opposite of b divided by 2a and b squared minus 4ac, we've used those before already. So now we're putting everything together into the quadratic formula. So we're going to go to the example, and then we're going to flip to the back and do one of the irrational solutions problems. But for this one, we're going to start with x squared minus 5x minus 36 equals 0. And step 1 says to make sure that your equation is set equal to 0 and written in standard form. Remember, standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. And we do have that for our example, so we are good to go on step 1. If it is not in this format, you do need to make sure that you have it in ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 format. Okay, so step 2 is identify a, b, and c. And I have had you do that before, so we're going to go ahead and start that again. So a equals, b equals, c equals. So our a here is 1, b is negative 5, and c is negative 36. Okay, so then step 3 is to substitute these values into our formula and then simplify. So anytime I see b, I'm going to put my b term, and you know the rest, a and c. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with x equals, and my formula is the opposite of b, so the opposite of negative 5 plus or minus the square root of parentheses negative 5 squared minus 4 times a times c, and then that all divided by 2 times a. All right, so I'm going to start at the top and then work my way through it. So I'm going to go ahead and solve what is under the radical first. I do know that the opposite of negative 5 is a positive 5, so I'm going to put 5 plus or minus, and then we're going to do negative 5 squared. Okay, and that's 25, because remember a negative times a negative is positive, minus 4 times 1 times negative 36. Well, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 36 is going to be 169. Okay, so negative 4 times 1 times negative 36 is 144. I'm jumping ahead. And then this divided by 2. Now 25 plus 144 is 169. Okay, so all I did was I did the negative 5 squared to get 25. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 36 is 144. 25 plus 144 is 169. And now I can go ahead and solve this. I know the square root of 169, that's a perfect square, so that's going to be equal to 13. So 5 plus or minus 13 divided by 2. Okay, and 5 minus 13, negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. And then 5 plus 13 is 18, divided by 2 is 9. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. You're just going to plug in the numbers and solve. I do want to go to one that has an irrational solution just so I can show you what that looks like. So we're going to flip to the back, and we are going to go ahead and I'm going to start with number 11. So number 11, okay, we have x squared plus x plus 9 equals 20. First step is to make sure that this is in ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form. Since I need to move this, I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides, so I'll have x squared plus x minus 11 equals 0. I'm going to identify my a, my b, and my c. A is 1, b is 1, c is negative 11. Okay, so now I can go ahead and plug this into my formula. Remember, my formula is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and plug in my numbers. So I'm plugging the opposite of b, and that is negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 11, all divided by 2 times a. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and solve this, and I have my 1 squared, which I know is 1, and then negative 4 times 1 times negative 11. So negative 4 times 1 times negative 11 is a positive 44, all divided by 2a. Okay, so I've got 45 under here. Oh, sorry, 2a, it's 2 times 1 is 2. So then I have negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 45 divided by 2. And at this point, I need to make sure I am putting this in simplest radical form. And I know that the biggest perfect square that goes into 45 is going to be 9. So to simplify this, I'm going to write negative 1, okay, with my little squigglies, negative 1 plus or minus, and I know that for the square root of 45, that is 9 times 5, which becomes then 3 square roots of 5, all divided by 2. And I would just leave my answer like this. Now, you may be able to simplify, and I am going to go up to 10 then to show you what that would look like. So for number 10, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. We have our A is negative 1, B is negative 2, C is 7. So we go ahead and plug these into my equation. So I have my x equals the opposite of my b. The opposite of negative 2 is a positive 2. And then plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Okay, and then we go ahead and keep going. So I've got 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times negative 1 is 4. 4 times 7 is 28. All divided by a negative 2. Okay, so 28 plus 4 is 32. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this in simplest radical form. And that in simplest radical form becomes, let's do 2 plus or minus divided by negative 2. Okay, and then the square root of 32. I know the biggest perfect square that goes into that is going to be 16. 16 times 2, so 4 square roots of 2. Okay, so now at this point, I can simplify this. I can do, since 2 goes into both 2 and 4, I can actually simplify this further. So I'm going to do 2 divided by negative 2, which is negative 1, and then plus or minus, and then 4 divided by negative 2. Okay, and that's going to be negative 2. But it doesn't matter here because if I was negative 2, the negative minus the negative would become a positive, and the positive minus negative, it's still going to mean the same thing. So I'm going to just put 2 here because if you have this negative at this point, just keep it positive. It's not going to change the answer. You're still going to get the exact same answer even if you use a positive. Okay, so it wants a positive 2 here, and that would be your answer. I know that's a little confusing about the positive 2 because 4 divided by negative 2 is a negative 2. But again, if you're solving it, plus a negative is the same thing as the subtraction if it was positive like this and vice versa. So you're just going to write your second number as positive, regardless of if it's negative or not.